and welcome to the inaugural Artisans and Scholars of Lochac discussion. A while ago, when I was the ANS officer of my shire, I wanted to explore the range and depth of expertise held by members so that others might know where to go for inspiration or advice in learning a new skill. With my warrant expired and time on my hands, I am now turning my eyes to the wider kingdom. So this is the inaugural Artisans and Scholars of Lochac discussion, not Darton. And who better to start the series off than none other but the OG of Lochac herself, Mistress Rowan Perigrynne. Her entry in the canon law is extensive, so we'll limit ourselves to mentioning that she is the third member of the Order of the Laurel listed on canon law, and the second Pelican. She is also
Actually, that's not true.
Not true.
No, I'm the second Laurel and the first Pelican. If you have a look at the names before that, those are kings and queens of the West.
Oh, so I don't know the names from that long ago because I was a baby Scadian.
So I was the first Pelican, and Madeline de Begonia and I were the first Laurels.
Okay, so the canon law put some names ahead of you.
Yeah. Long story. It's how the database was set up, and so if any crown gave an award to somebody in Lochac, then they and their awards got listed in Lochac.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let me get that straight. The first Pelican and the second Laurel.
Yeah.
Okay, so she is the second member of the Order of the Laurel listed in Lochac, and the first Pelican. There we go. Okay. Maybe I'll edit that out. Maybe I won't. She also has both an award and a whole barony as her namesakes. She is a former guildmaster, patron, and champion of the Worshipful Company of Broderers. She often teaches classes and keeps a thorough documentation of her assorted projects and tutorials on her website, and her skill in the making of hats is well known. Welcome, Mistress Rowan. Applause.
Thanks for asking me.
Okay, so we'll get down to things. Questions I ask every interviewee, and then some that actually tie in nicely from the populace. So as we've said before, you can choose whichever of your arts you feel is most pertinent to each question, and we'll chat. So what drew you to your art, and what do you do?
Well, my art is a very broad spectrum of arts. I am really interested in so many different kinds of arts. So over the long time that I've been playing this game, I have had a couple of constant things. So costume and in all its forms would definitely be a constant, but also things that I've done from time to time or done in a big way and then not. So, yeah. I'm definitely a bit of a polyglot sort of person. I love trying to learn new skills of any sort.
Yeah.
I guess probably my main constant art would be costume, which includes accessories, so things like headwear. I know that somebody particularly asked about how I got interested in headwear.
Yeah.
So I'll answer that question.
Okay.
I think for me, right from the very beginning, I can remember the very first costume that I made before we were even part of the SCA.
Yeah.
And I think it was 14th century, and so I'd made a sort of coat-hardy thing. Actually, I'd made a sideless surcoat that went over a long-sleeved skivvy.
Yeah.
And but I made the headwear because the headwear was the thing that made the look. So I've always been really aware of the fact that the headwear is the thing that's the most different. So we don't normally wear hats in our modern lives, except maybe the occasional sun hat.
Yeah.
So it is not something that we're used to wearing, and it's not something we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
But if you wear, for most people, if you wear the rest of the outfit and you don't do anything about your head, it's like you're dressing up.
Yeah.
Whereas once you do the headwear, then it's the whole outfit. So I guess I've always been interested in headwear, just as part of being interested in costume.
Yeah, it's about ideal. I did a few of these as a series of the Artisans in Lochac in Darton, And I would ask them at the end, what medieval item that gives you joy and delight do you wish people would pay more attention to? And the frequent answer was hats.
Yeah.
So yeah,
well, I would definitely second that.
yeah,
It's not the only thing, but it's way up there.
yeah, yeah. Because the clothing is usual, but yes, it's true. I mean, it's we don't cover our heads very often as women these days. I notice that because mundanely I work with teaching English to former refugees, and a lot of them are Muslim women or Orthodox Christian
Yep.
women, and they will often have head coverings on.
Yeah.
And it's the thing they do, and it's not a
It
thing
is
I
the thing
do.
they do.
Yeah.
No.
And it's an extra part of something they always wear. But also there's
And
the practicality of a coif.
it is a practical thing as well.
Yeah.
It can provide shade and sunscreening,
Yeah.
cover dirty hair, like does all sorts of things. But for me, I know that there have been a couple of occasions where there's been a really high wind and I've lost my headgear, and
Yeah.
I have felt completely embarrassed
Yeah.
about that because when I'm in that garb,
Yeah.
having suddenly being exposed with my head was just like
Yeah.
totally wrong.
With your
So
modern hairstyle.
with my modern hairstyle, even worse. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing about having cut my hair off. I don't have my braids anymore. But I know that you do like padding underneath everything as well to make up for that lack of silhouette as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on the style. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, on a hot day, when you dip your coif in water and stick it on your head, that's also a very nice feeling. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's just an always thing. Yeah.
It's an always thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's just as we say, it's enough of a different thing that it's makes it medieval, makes it period. Yeah.
Yeah, it has more of an impact for its size and the amount of work than the rest of the garb.
Yeah, true, true. Because I must admit I do wear tea tunics now to work. Over top of jeans or under a skirt, but I do wear them because they are so comfy. Yeah. Okay. So was the headwear, making of the headwear, something you expected to like?
Um, initially, it's a difficult question. I was, as I said, it was just part of making the whole outfit, and that was
Yeah.
true every time I made an outfit from the early days on. I think I began to get particularly interested in headwear a bit later, and I probably didn't expect to enjoy the headwear focus that I do have and how much I enjoy
Mm.
researching different new kinds of hats and trying to make them. Initially, of course, I just made things for myself or maybe for my partner.
Yeah.
And when I started doing the hat prizes, which is quite a while ago now,
Yeah.
more than years, then suddenly I was making all kinds of completely random hats
Yeah.
and out of the area that I was used to,
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed. And then I really enjoyed the whole process of researching a new thing and figuring out how to make it as close as I could to the original. So yeah, I didn't anticipate that, but it's been a lot of fun, which is why I've kept doing it.
Yeah. So it's the research aspect and the new things, which
The
is
research, but also the new skills
yeah.
and trying to translate that research into a practical thing and to try, where possible, to replicate what I knew about the period techniques and materials.
Hmm. And of course, different materials would take place in different cultures because of what they had available. Yeah.
And at different times and at
Yeah.
different class level.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. That would definitely keep it new. Yeah. All right. So keeping it new keeps you interested. But what else keeps you interested, and how do you avoid boredom or burnout with your arts?
Well, I've been doing this now for 45 years, which is a really long time. I started when I was a student,
Mm-hmm.
and I have stayed connected to the society that whole time
Yeah.
to a greater or lesser degree. And I think because the SCA has so many different aspects, it has combat, which I did for a while, both heavy
Yeah.
and then archery for a long time.
Mm.
And it has service, which I've done on every level from local up to Kingdom Seneschal.
Mm.
It has arts, all the different arts.
Yeah.
I often joke to new people, it's buy one hobby, gets the next 30 free. So there is so much while staying within the same social construct
Yeah.
to keep you engaged. I can't imagine ever getting bored. If I get tired of doing one thing, then I do something else.
Mm.
I, as I said, I've held a lot of offices,
Mm.
but at times I've not held an office at all.
Mm.
And I've been very focused on a number of different arts over the time. In
Mm.
the early days, I did a huge amount of dancing and
Yeah.
was part of the original creation of the Silver Rondelle.
Oh, yeah.
These days, I rarely dance. I was also did a lot of leather work, which I then didn't do for maybe 15 years, and now I do quite a lot of again.
Mm.
So some of these come and go. If I ever find something that's, if I'm ever over something,
Mm.
then I just stop doing that and pick up something else to do.
Yeah. You might
I
find
think,
something else you want to do that you need that gives you a new skill as well. Yeah.
or yeah, a new thing that I'd like to make. Um, I think it's also the case that I like researching ever more deeply things that I actually know quite a lot about. And I've gone through multiple iterations of research into the early 16th century German clothing
Yeah.
that I like making. And I feel like I get to a point where, okay, I understand it well at this level and make some stuff. And then a few years later, I'll have another deeper dive into
Mm.
things and learn some new things, maybe change my mind about how some things were done.
Yeah.
So I think that's another aspect. Teaching is definitely a thing that keeps things fresh for me. I love teaching.
Mm.
I have professional teaching qualifications and have done quite a lot of teaching professionally, and
Yeah.
it's something I love doing. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
love teaching classes at events, but I also do quite a lot of local teaching.
Yeah.
Um, and seeing somebody else learn a new skill and seeing them put that into practice and see the joy that they're getting out of that,
Oh, yeah.
that keeps things fresh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm teaching basic reading and writing skills, but you see them grow and their confidence develop, and I helped. Yeah, it's always good. I'm definitely hear you on the teaching front. Okay. So that goes into a question that came from the populace, which is, do you have any other tips for others to help them maintain long-term involvement as they go through different phases of their lives?
Well, I guess a lot of the stuff that I've just said really
Yeah.
applies to that. I think it's really important that you do this because you enjoy it
Yeah.
and you find within this broad gamut of experiences and crafts and capabilities and so on, things that appeal to you. And that will change over time.
Mm.
I was Lochac Seneschal, I've been Baroness, I've been Princess. I don't know that I'll do those things again.
Mm.
Um, I was Provost of Scribes twice at two different times. Um, so one of the things that was really interesting moving to Politicopolis, I didn't have any roles here for quite a lot of years,
Mm.
but then I've taken on several local roles, and that's been fun too.
Mm.
It's like doing it in a really different sort of way.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, different crafts at different times. If I find I'm not enjoying it anymore, then I stop doing it.
Yeah.
And I look around for, okay, what is interesting me? What is
Mm.
beckoning me? What is it a challenge because I think I could do this office better? Or is it a challenge because I do want to make this new thing? That means I need to learn some skills.
Yeah.
I I think yeah, just doing things because it's fun and being aware of your own experience of that.
Mm.
It's not to say that I don't sometimes do things that need doing even though I'm not enjoying them. Of
Mm.
course I do that, like everybody does.
Yeah.
But to stay engaged, you need to keep having fun.
Yeah. So if it's not fun, don't be afraid to put it down.
Don't be afraid to put it down. And maybe that's forever, or maybe it's, you'll pick it up in 5 years.
Maybe.
And
Yeah.
both of those are okay.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. We kind of touched on what surprised you a little, did we? Or did the research surprise you, or was it?
Not that anything surprised me.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's kind of an odd question.
Our hat
That's a very
surprising
open,
somehow.
very, very open-ended question.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Are hats surprising in any way? Was there something about the process of making them that made you think, what?
No, I think probably in more recent years, the thing that surprised me is that although I've been very focused on things internally here and within the kingdom and my own work that I'm doing, I think I've been surprised to discover that actually on a larger scale, on a larger stage, that I actually have a large amount of knowledge about a number of things that is comparable to other people working at a high level. I suppose that surprised me.
Yeah. Knowledge can
That's not
creep
why
up on you. Yeah. Okay. What would you consider the most useful skill you've learned?
probably I think the generic skills. Research, I think,
Yep.
is a really useful skill, and it can be applied to any art. Once you know how to research, you can research anything. So it's
Yeah.
really worth learning how to do it and finding where the fun is in that. And I
Yeah.
love the research aspect of a project just as much as I love the making of it. I think another useful skill is project management.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's something that I learnt by doing before in my mundane world. I then got a lot of qualifications in project management, but I already was pretty good at managing projects before I did that. And that's something that I learnt just by doing both my own personal projects and group projects.
Yeah.
And and teaching. As I said, I mean, I learnt how to teach, but I've had the most practice teaching within this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And teaching is a skill.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
The longer I do it, the more I become aware of things I wouldn't have done beforehand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, okay. Because of course, project management, when you've got all the people in the SCA and you're doing group projects and you've got little bits to happen here and there, and you've got to see what's and people having their own
And
burnouts and losing interest and things as well to manage.
it's not like in a work environment, because within the SCA it's a volunteer
Yeah.
organisation. So you need to accept the fact that people will have life things and
Mm.
prioritise other things. And you need to build that in when you're
Yeah.
planning the project. You need to build in the fact that some people will not be able to do what they said,
Mm.
and that some people have the best of intentions. So you need to build that in right from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. So not last minute.
No.
Okay. Even though that can have its own motivation factors. Mm. Um, what was the hardest or most challenging thing?
I think probably I do. I do a lot of scribal work.
Yeah.
Again, that's something that I did very focused for many years, and then not at all for a long time, and have been doing again for several years.
Yeah.
Um, the painting comes very naturally to me, but
Mm.
I'm not a natural scribe. I'm not a natural calligrapher.
Yeah.
So I've had to work to get a reasonable hand, or a number of hands,
Mm.
and I can produce competent work, but it doesn't have the natural flair that so many of the other things that I do have. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a challenge. And since locally I'm at the moment the only scribe here, I do all the scribing for all the scrolls, so I get a lot of
Yeah.
practice. But
Yeah.
it's not a natural flair thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That does seem to be a thing that there's a lack of scribes. So we need to make scribing sexy somehow.
Well, I've got plenty of scribes. It's just that they will paint.
All right. So more calligraphers.
The calligraphers, yeah.
Yes. People who've got neat-ish handwriting but can do different fonts. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Has your SCA arts helped with another art form, whether both Scadian or mundane?
Well, as I mentioned before, a number of the things kind of overlap. Once you
Yeah.
learn them for one art, you can use them in multiple arts. So
Yeah.
I
Research.
mentioned before research.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think another thing is design. I love
Yeah.
design. I'm good at design. And design is something that you use for everything from a hat to a scroll. So
Yeah.
when you learn the elements of design and balance, and particularly using your research to be able to deeply understand the medieval aesthetic
Mm.
of the thing that you're looking at, which changes with time and country, and be able to extract that and then be able to come up with a new design that reflects those aspects. That's a really transferable skill and it's really useful. So
Yeah.
you develop for one, but you can use it for lots of things. Um, in terms of mundane things, I have always done a lot of sewing before I started doing costuming. I was sewing fairly early, but because of the amount of sewing that I was doing within the SCA, that also fed into my sewing skills mundanely. And
Yeah.
for many years, I made all my own suits and did that kind
Mm.
of stuff too. So I guess that transferred the other way. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I too. I mean, I joined the SCA because did a lot of sewing for my own clothes, and my hand sewing improved immensely during my time in the
yes,
SCA. I was
absolutely.
hand sewing just for hems for a while there and buttons, but now I've got several things that have been completely by hand just because machines are noisy and you can't watch TV so easily while you're doing them. Yeah. Um, but you can when you're sitting on the couch with the needle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're stuck on a desert island or an artistic retreat of one. What five tools are you taking with you?
Well, I don't know that the tool. So pen and paper,
Yeah.
absolute large amount of paper.
Mhm.
So I would go crazy without the ability to write and draw.
Yeah.
And they're essential tools for doing anything really.
Yeah.
I guess if it's the artistic retreat of one, I'd want my embroidery. I'd want whatever handwork sewing I was working on, or whatever project I was working on. The thing that I'd really like to take, particularly if it's an artistic retreat, is I'd like my library because
Yeah.
that's kind of an essential tool for doing the things I do.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it counts, but that's what I'd like.
Yeah. Well, five tools, but it's yeah. I think we'll have to allow that because you can't sort of just go like choose a couple of books. You kind of need the whole
No,
thing. Yeah. No. Or the internet that has access to your library back at home or something.
yeah, I thought about the internet, but I thought if it's in which case my laptop and online access would be another possible tool, and at least I could look at online collections of things. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've got your books. Books are great. You don't have to plug them in.
correct. They don't run out of batteries.
No. No. Um. mm. So we've just got 10 minutes before this recording ends, so we'll see how much we can get through. What is the best non-standard tool you've found?
I was reading this in the next question and thought, how do I interpret this? Probably, um, I've developed a lot of machine sewing tricks for hand sewing.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean things like if I'm doing a lot of very fine hems on straight fabric, for example,
Mm.
I will put my sewing machine to basting stitch and I will press and baste that entire length by machine
Mm.
on long stitch. And then I'll hand sew it and then I'll pull the threads out.
Yeah.
Heaps better than pins, which fall out and stick into you. And although I hand based a lot for
Yeah.
something like that, a machine based works really well.
Yeah.
If same with if I'm filling seams on the inside of a skirt,
Yeah.
I usually do a double fill. I'll fold those press sews and run them through on the machine and then hand fill them.
Yeah.
And there are a few other variations on that. So I think that's probably a useful hack.
Machine for a yeah for it's a shortcut to make it hold, and then you do it by hand to
Yeah.
or the
Yeah, and
authenticity.
then I'm doing it by hand. So the machine sewn basting is strong and it's very fast. It's
Yeah.
You can't use it in all circumstances at all, but for when it's useful, long straight stretches.
Yeah. Like him.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like hemp.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with medieval garb, the way it is, hems are often a lot longer.
Yeah.
Most of
Meters.
it. Yes. Oh, yes. What's the best? So any guilty pleasures or dirty hacks?
Probably,
The
I
machine.
kind of put those two together. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's probably a useful thing. I do machine sew a lot of my big seams. I hand
Yeah.
finish everything, but I machine construct a lot
Yeah.
of it. It's not where it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and where it won't be seen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the process of redoing some things I made initially by machine because, as I said when I started, my hand sewing was not up to much, and I had to rejig and take some things out and get the staining out, and I had to take the neckline off. And I'm like, I'm just going to fix them up. And while I'm at it, yeah, let's just redo all the seams. Yeah, no, I've got to get back into those. It's sitting there judging me in the corner over there. What advice would you give to a newbie in any of your forms of art?
I think recognize that. Think about your inspirations. I think
Yeah.
beware Pinterest, beware seeing somebody else across the field and thinking, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I'll make one of those. I think
Mm,
that's a great way to start. And it's a great way to find out what you like
yeah,
and what interests you. But don't assume that because somebody has put a picture up online of themselves wearing this particular garb or this particular anything,
mm,
or you've seen somebody in an event and you think, so that's how you do Viking. I'll do Viking like that.
mm,
Don't assume that just because it's somebody else has done it that way, that that's the right way, even if there's somebody that you respect,
yeah,
because within the society, we don't have to do we, periodicity is not a requirement.
mm,
It's encouraged, but you need to make an attempt at
yeah,
pre-17th century clothes. It doesn't need to be authentic. So if that's not something that matters to you, then sure.
mm,
If you see a fantasy Viking across the field and it appeals to you, go for it.
yeah,
But if making an accurate version of something actually matters to you, then
yeah,
don't assume that just because somebody who you know, who you admire, is wearing that,
mm,
that is an authentic thing. Do your own research. So
yeah,
great starting point, but do your own research. Have a look into it, dig in, and find out what 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 the evidence really is, what the archaeologists have really produced.
yeah,
I mean, it's fun too, but I think that that's probably a big one. And as I said, if authenticity doesn't matter to you, then it's irrelevant. But if it does,
yeah.
then
So it's kind of like using Wikipedia as a for essays. It's like you don't,
yeah,
but you go back to their sources and then you research a
yes,
bit more and you go, that's cool. What else
yep,
can I find? And it may be that the person who's wearing
absolutely,
it, they made it when they didn't know as much or something. And yeah, you can
yeah,
always go back and find
yeah.
your resources. Yeah. Do like a
Another thing
moon
I think
board,
would be,
but go deeper yourself.
yeah, yeah, use it as an inspiration, but then check it out,
Yeah.
confirm or dig in.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would say is that, again, if you're working on pretty much any craft and you're trying to use specific art examples
Mm.
as a reference,
Yeah.
don't do it on your phone or the laptop or whatever. Always print out your resource as big as you can. And if you're using multiple sources, then print them all out, because then you can look across multiple things at once and see similarities and differences, which
Oh
are
yeah.
not obvious when you're just like looking at one picture at a time. You can also scribble things on them. You can measure things. You can have them pinned up when you work so that every time you've got a decision to make, you can look and check your sources. If you have to open your phone, find the picture, bring it up and so on, you just don't do that. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, there are reasons to go analog. And unless you've got multiple computer screens all over the place, which not many of us have, some of us do, but not all of us.
And most people don't have in their workrooms.
Yeah. Cool.
And I suppose the third thing that I'd say is that 3 things. Yeah. If you are trying, 4 things actually. If you're trying any new techniques, so a new to you technique, or a new stitch, a new way of doing anything, do a small sample test. If you're happy with it, great. If you're not, keep doing more sample tests. So if I'm making a new thing, I will do a lot of sampling just to make sure that I like the effect of what I'm doing, that I'm comfortable with the technique, that the scale is right, that the materials are working right. So quite often that's just a 1. Yep, okay, I'm good with that, I'll do it. But sometimes it can be as many as a dozen until I'm happy with what I've got.
Yeah.
So if you're not happy with it in the test form, then don't move on to the real thing, because it's not going to make you any happier.
It's not going to melt magic.
Yeah, that's right. And that same thing is true, and a specific instance of that, which is kind of my 4th thing, is for costume, always make a toile. Unless it's a pattern that you have made recently for yourself, you haven't changed body shape, it's exactly the same style, and maybe you're just changing up the decoration, sure. But anytime you're making a new thing, then it is always worth going through the toile stage using cheap fabric. I don't buy calico for that. I use old bed sheets, and I buy curtains from charity shops, and people give me fabric. So it's always worth doing, because, again, you might think that this is an extra step, it's taking more time. But if you find a problem, you've saved yourself a lot of time. And again, you might need to iterate that. I remember my personal best is I was developing a new bodice style, and it took me 23 goes till I was happy with it. Normally I do it in 2. But there was no point. Again, if you don't like it in the mock-up fabric, don't assume that the things that you think you'll fix, that those fixes will translate. Make the fixes, try a new version. When you've got your mock-up version working, then go and make the real thing, and you'll be so much faster, because you can cut your fabric with confidence. You know everything's going to work. You've already sorted out how the tricky things go together. It actually saves you time.
So, recapping, think about your inspiration and do your own research. If you're looking at specific art examples, printing out is best. Not relying on bitty phones or finding documents, and you can see, when you've got a broad view, you can see the comparisons and differences. If you're doing a new tech, do samples, even if it takes you 23 of them. And always make a toile.
And always make a toile.
Yes, it's like anything in relationship. You don't expect the next time will be different unless you make it different.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
It's like it's wisdom or something. Okay. What helps if you're stuck with ideas?
Well, I'd have to say I'm never stuck for ideas. I always have a schooling project at various stages of development. I have a lot of projects at the research stage. So if I'm looking at something and off the side I suddenly see a bright, shiny thing, I am pretty good at staying with what I'm doing, but I'll get that information. I'll grab the details of the resource. I'll create a folder for it. I have a highly structured sequence of folders on my laptop
Yeah.
by topic and then sub things and so on. I'll create a new folder. I'll
Mm.
stick information in that as I find it,
Yeah.
so that I don't lose it and I don't have 500 tabs open. And
Yep.
then when I get to the point where I will make that thing, then I've already done a lot of the work.
Yeah.
So I try not to have too many projects on the go in parallel at the same time. It doesn't always work, but in general, I like to have two or three, maybe one main thing, and then a couple of things. I've always got a hand basket project, usually embroidery, that I do when I'm not doing anything else, or I'm sitting in meetings, or I'm sitting talking to somebody. And so that project has no time scale. It'll be finished when it's finished, and then I'll turn it into something. So running out of ideas is not the problem. Too many ideas, much more of a problem.
So you've got to have a filtering system then.
I do. I have a good filtering system. Yeah. I have ways of prioritizing things and deciding what I want to do. And that includes allowing for spontaneous projects. Sometimes a spontaneous project that you can do within a day or two is just, it's a bright idea. You get all enthused. I've already done the research, and I might just jump and do it in the middle of something else just for fun. But most of my projects tend to be bigger than that, bigger scale than that.
Small side quest before you get back into the main story. Side quests are great. Sometimes it's not far off your path at all, and sometimes it just, this is it. If it's not fun, then side quests can be fun. Yeah. So many people have said hats about the medieval item that they wish people would pay more attention to. Do you agree, or is there something else you'd like to add to that?
There's two things. Hats, absolutely. I think, as I've said, that they are the thing that, even at a distance, makes the biggest impact, because they're things that we don't wear and we're not used to wearing them, and we're not used to seeing them. So they make a much bigger impact than anything else. And I'm assuming here, but probably should state explicitly, the right hat to go with the outfit, like not just a random hat, but the right hat of the right style, of the right gender, of the right class, of the right country, of the right time, the right hat to complete the outfit. I think those are important. And the second one, which really stands out to me a lot, but most other people don't notice at all, is purses and pouches. That I've spent 40 years researching these, and I have a vast amount of knowledge about what was worn in what time and place and by whom and at what class and gender and stuff. And for me, the wrong purse just, it stands out as a clangy thing. And there are a lot of SCA-isms in this regard. And probably the biggest thing is women wearing men's purses, women wearing men's pouches. And that's definitely one of these things that people see other people wearing it and therefore assume that that's an accurate thing, or that was what people wore. So through the majority of through all of the Middle Ages, there are no instances of women wearing leather belt pouches that are like with a flap or hung on two things. There's none. It's really quite astonishing. Women wore drawstring purses for the vast majority of our time period and across all the different cultures. There were some variations in shape, and there are a couple of things that are not in that pattern, but that's pretty much the usual pattern. So to me, a woman wearing a man's leather purse on their belt, pouch on their belt, is like a man in a nice suit with a girly handbag covered in bells. It really stands out.
I mean, if that's what gives him joy, great. But if he wants to be period accurate, probably not.
That's right. And what particularly, again, annoys me is people who genuinely are trying to make a whole outfit and make it work. And because they see other people wearing that, they assume that that's correct, which is totally understandable. But if you actually look, it's not the case.
Or if that's what was available. I mean, I think I bought my square pouch at Penzig. Um, and I think I just, for ease, it would fit my phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, running around. But yeah, a pouch.
And many of the people selling things. So these days, if you're buying at some markets, if you're buying jewelry, for example,
Yeah.
if you go back 20, 30 years, there might be well, actually, we probably didn't have stuff like that at our markets. Let's be real. But if there was like a Viking brooch there,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have any labels on it or anything. And now, if you look at the display,
Yeah.
that normally the person who's selling them will be able to say, oh, that's 10th century Swedish, and that one's this, and that one's this. Like they actually tell you what the information is. And that's true too if you're buying things online, that you can usually get the associated information of this is the culture and this is the time, and these are a pair of women's brooches or whatever it is. But people who sell purses don't tend to do that. They don't specify this is a man's purse.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
And
well.
I don't know if that's because they don't know themselves,
Yeah.
quite possibly, or
That
they
makes
don't think
what
that people want that
sells.
information.
Maybe. Who knows? Oh, who knows if they're just making what sells, maybe. Yeah. Okay. What's some common misconceptions about your art forms?
Exceptions. Well, I
Purses
suppose
that women wear. That women wear purses.
Yeah, that's right. Wearing the wrong purse, for sure.
And the wrong hat.
That's right, up there. And the wrong hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, more people wear the right hat than wear the right purse.
Oh, okay. We have a quest. Your purse, right? Yeah.
I think another thing in the general costuming stuff is not being aware of the class difference in cut and in cloth. That people often will think that if you take a high-end noble gown, dress, whatever, and you make it in cheap, ordinary, everyday fabric, that makes it an everyday person's gown, and that's not the case. If you the cut changed as well as the cloth.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a big misconception. There are some time periods, particularly if we go early, if you're looking at like 12th, 13th century and even earlier, where the cut was actually pretty similar for all of the different classes. It was only the quality of the cloth that changed, and perhaps a bit more of it. So I can understand that there are some times when that is definitely the case. But as soon as you move, particularly as soon as you move through the 14th and into the 15th and 16th century, then the cut changes as well as the cloth.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a misconception that I see.
Okay. Yeah. So be aware of that when you're looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A good clue to class would be, what is the person doing?
Well, sure, and you can usually tell by their stance and by their garment and by the by the context if they're baking bread or
yeah,
something like that. You know that they're not noble. There are allegories, but in general,
probably don't make that particular item they're wearing to bake bread out of silk.
Well, no, and maybe yes, definitely, but look at the cut as well as the cloth.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say is the best idea you're working on, and why?
I found, again, this is a kind of an odd question. I think my best idea in the last few years has been to actually put up my website.
Yeah.
It had been something I'd idly thought about for at least 20 years and never got around to it. It never got to the top of the priority list.
Yeah.
And clearly it was going to. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And suddenly I wasn't making things because I wasn't going to events. And I started eventually started teaching online when that happened. And one of my friends said, hey, you teach really well online. Maybe you should make videos. And I thought about that for a while, and I thought, yeah, maybe I might.
Yeah.
But then what I found following those classes, because I did quite a lot of them, was that I was constantly handing out, like sending people, emailing and messaging class notes. And I thought, well, that's not sustainable. Clearly, I need to have a more efficient way of getting class notes to people than emailing them individually.
I feel like I can quickly share the screen where I've got your website up, just so people can see it. And then I've got it here. I'll share it. I've got it here available. Just one moment. It's that screen there. So I'm just going to share that quickly. And we can go, this is her website.
There it is.
rowantreeworkshop.com.au. And
so that was a big project.
Yeah. I remember seeing your posts about it.
Yeah. So I did start doing that, and it's in WordPress, so it uses a lot of blog characteristics, but I've structured it like a website so that things are structured under headings and you can find things.
Such as costumes and embroideries and scribal arts. So there's all the things. So if you want to know things that Mistress Rowan gets up to, including how to make your own aglets and a yardage board and things like that, that is the place to go. All right, I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
Unless there's something else you want me to show particularly from the web.
No, that's good.
That's good. All right, I will stop the share there. Get back to our faces.
So that turned out to be a much bigger project than I'd expected, particularly because I decided I would retrospectively document a lot of stuff, and though I'd kept a lot of the material from my early projects in terms of references and stuff, a lot of stuff I hadn't and had to re-find sources and all sorts of things. So I
broken links at the time.
No, a lot of some of the early things were, way before the days of the internet.
Yeah.
So deciding to retrospectively do small projects made it a lot of work, but it also made it a much richer resource, which is what I was interested in. And at the time that I went live, I had, I think, 120 projects on it.
Yeah.
And then I've added some more old ones in since then, but most importantly, any new project I've put up, and I've kept doing that.
Yeah,
and it's been really good also when I'm teaching classes. For a lot of things now, I don't need to give people printed notes. I can just tell them where the information is on the website, so they can do that, and so that's worked really well. There's still some things that are not on the site, particularly technique things. But so that was a good idea. It was a lot of work. I'm really pleased that I did it. And it's been great just to be able to, when people ask me how to do something, to be able to say, here you go, here's a link. It's been good. And it gets a lot of traffic. I've been surprised. It's had 40,000 visitors now, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I wouldn't say my own blog has had anywhere near that much. My own linen blog. Yeah. Okay. What art excites you now? Right now. What's in the work bag and the work table?
Still everything. I think I've recently brought I've got a couple of things on the side to show. So I've been doing more leatherwork over the last few years, and that's been fun. And I've also started upgrading my own purses to go with my own outfits, because I had kind of reasonable versions of them, but for the different time classes and stuff that I do. But I thought it was high time that I made myself some actual real ones. So, so I made, this is my German middle class purse, which I'm very happy with. And I made an upper class purse that I gave to a friend for her laurelling
Yeah.
And I will make myself one of those. And I've got a couple of others that are uh, fairly high up on my priority list, except that there have been a couple of crash priorities, so not so high.
Yeah.
And also on the leatherwork, I recently made,
Oh, yeah.
and again, you're not going to be able to see them, these casework holders for my glasses,
Pictures on
which
the
are,
blog, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're based on lots of finds, and I had a lot of fun teaching myself new techniques for those. So that was uh, that was good. And of course, I'm doing a lot of costuming, and right at the moment, I'm doing some deadline based costuming, which I don't really enjoy that much, but needs must.
Yes,
We're
as you
getting
said,
through
we
it.
have to do the thing that needs doing sometimes. This can't always all be fun. Yeah.
That's right. And I'm enjoying aspects of that.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying some things coming together really well, but
Yeah.
yeah, I prefer these days. I've got enough stuff. I
Yeah.
prefer to work on things so that I can enjoy the process of making
Yeah.
just as much as the product. And so that's less fun against a deadline. Although some deadlines, I mean, it's still good to have things coming up and deadlines that you're working towards. As I discovered it during COVID, as many people did,
Yeah.
without any deadlines at all, without anything happening, I really didn't feel inspired to make things. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's something I
And
haven't been to any events for a wee while, and so the remaking of my Lena has extended out while work clothes making has taken precedence.
it's
Yeah.
taken precedence. That makes sense. And I still really enjoy doing headwear. I've got a couple of prize hats to make
Yep.
on my list. Looking forward to making those.
Hmm.
Um,
There'll be another Canterbury Feed before you know it, and therefore another hat.
well, I mean, I've got the one from this year and
Yeah.
the one from festival is
How many do you make a year?
two
Two. All right.
for
So
other people. So
festival
two
and
prizes,
two
festival
prizes.
and
Yeah, that
yeah,
would definitely
and
and
that's they
yeah,
always take me out in like really random directions, which is so
yeah.
much fun. I really enjoy that aspect.
Because you never know who's going to
And the
take
other
it because it depends on who wins the tourney and who's got things and yeah,
that absolutely, and there are a number of hats that are on my. I really hope somebody asks me to make this hat
yeah,
one day. And Grimm's white leather Elizabethan hat
yeah,
was on that list. I'd wanted to make that for years.
yeah,
So when he said he wanted a tall 16th century hat,
yeah,
I asked him if he'd be happy with that one, and he said yes, which was great.
yeah.
So
That's good.
that was good. And in fact, last weekend, I presented a talk on that hat to
Mm,
the UK Medieval and Medieval Dress and Textiles Association. So
mm.
that was fun.
Which is why we did not record this last weekend.
Indeed. And apart from that, the exciting thing that I'm really keen to get on with
Mm,
is in fact the videos that were suggested that I do many in the COVID years, which led to the website. Well, the
yeah,
website is now a thing, and so I have been gearing up to start to produce videos on techniques and on how to make things, but also on who wore what when
yeah.
and that kind of stuff for a while now.
Mm,
And so I'm really looking forward to the current urgent projects being over so that I can get back to actually doing that.
yeah.
I was hoping to get the first one out before festival, but meh.
No, no. Crash priorities, as you said. Well, I look forward to
Yes.
seeing those someday. They will hopefully not follow along too far along from me uploading this one at some point. Um, all right. Well, that's all my questions. And I will say thank you very, very, very much for your time and your knowledge and those excellent tips that I will pass on. Yeah. So if people want to be in touch with you, if they found you inspiring, well, I'm not saying if because they found you inspiring, what's the best thing if they want to reach out? They'll probably see you at an event somewhere, but what else can they do?
They can see me at an event. They can contact me via Facebook. I've got my own personal page if you want to message me, or I've
Yep.
also got my Rowan Tree Workshop page. Contact me that way.
Yep.
There's also an email address attached to the website, so that's also an option.
Yep. Yep.
So happy to chat by messenger or in person or by email.
Yeah. And of course, have a big peruse of the website and find all the projects, and we'll keep our eyes posted for videos of how to do stuff. Cool. All right. Thank you very, very, very much.
Yeah, I'm glad we could finally do this.
Yes. Yes. Maybe be many more. All right. Thank you very
Good
much.
luck with this as an ongoing project.
Yes. Yes. Inspire the world.